And so, you know, with me working on a new kind of recovery, one for me alone, and what he's there on Facebook, I post the Heath Ledger Joker mix, a picture of the Queen, that fusion parody, or what do you want to call it, and his comment, Joker Queen, baby talking, and it made me wonder if when I was a kid he was thinking, you know, he's taken after his father. I never questioned his father about his profession and what the legal system and working in it meant for him, and then maybe Gavin took after his footsteps. So that meant Gavin learnt to take after the father's footsteps, which means when Gavin looked at me, he thought he had that in the back of his mind as a second nature metric. Take after the father's footsteps. So get out of here, man. You should have approached me. Everything we did with computer work and all of that, and building PCs. I don't not thank him for that and for those times. But yeah, it's not right. It's not right for you then, my friend, to want to profit off my blood. So, you know, and then approaching me at home, because I'm thinking about what Doppelhertz means. I hate getting my private thought process interrupted. There's Gavin. No, man, you shouldn't be asexual. I was thinking, if you're working in theatre and you know you got girls that are gonna dance as part of your gig, and you're helping paint their tits with nipple concealing paint, you know, if you're sexually promiscuous in your attitude and you want to do this work seriously, you know, if you're asexual and they know it's all business, some women will let you put nipple concealing paint over their breasts so that they can expose their breasts without exposing nipples and stuff like that. And there are certainly plenty of times to be asexual. So I just hated the intrusion on it. I found it so offensive. So. And so yeah, it's unfortunate to see about Gavin Hepburn's, you know, to violate your privacy just to advise you not to be asexual. Then he should, if he has to violate your privacy in the future, ask you what's up, what's the issue. What's bothering you? 2010 proved he was not much inclined to do that. I got a bit schoolyard, which was for the first time many years since school. Get asked a stupid question by a person who knew it was a stupid question. Yeah. You know. At least you should hand me a fucking intel. It's my search. You agreed to take certain responsibilities, and you want to dishonor that agreement, disrespect those concerned, those who asked you to make that agreement. Stand by it, even though not everyone's accounted for. You still stand by it. If you're as much of an idiot as I plan to always be. But yeah, you know, Gavin didn't have to be my friend. Should have said he didn't want to be at some point. I said, I have said, goodbye. I wish you well. Philosophy is brought up. He says thinking about thinking. I know it's thinking about why people hardly think and make stupid mistakes, such as you right now. So, philosophy begins where religion ends. Where were you, Gavin, when O'Connor Capital Chemists were pushing religion on me? What, were you watching all of that? Were you jerking off to the comic book man on The Simpsons? Has some guts. So I would say that's the irony of me and wanting to keep hold of collection of Christian music. These artists, the topic, the themes in their songs, I always noticed diverted massively from what was being taught in church, theology wise, and it's almost like how Eric Cartman in South Park was able to sell a Christian record even though he was singing I want to get down on my knees and start praising Jesus, and I want to feel His salvation all over my face. I don't know if lyrics like that could almost be passed off and sold by some marketers of Christian music. Fish FM with my friend James Fraser, we would play songs. We're supposed to be playing only Christian music. We played songs like the Butthole Surfers, Pepper, and we got phone calls coming in saying that wasn't a Christian song at all. But I'm an antichrist, as I've said before, and so if people who want to call Christians Bible bashers and have at them, I think I should read my debate transcripts and learn from that and learn how to actually outsmart them without name calling, because that's just pathetic. Because it clearly shows you're dispatched by people who will keep your drug use on the hush because they themselves are Freemasons, so they're not too fussed about that. But I can appreciate songs about, as long as they're not songs about Jesus performing miracles and rising from the dead and doing anything that defies natural law. If they're songs that are about how I could appreciate that not a single life deserves to be put to death and misrepresented and lied about after being killed heinously in a heinous murder. Yeah, you have no idea that Jesus isn't someone who would have, if he were alive now, would have been someone you would have liked to do pills with. You don't even know. But you can't judge him for the supernatural teachings that others have put in his mouth after the fact. So, study history and all of that and get your facts straight, I think. There's been a lot to think through and absorb and feel concerning family. In a sense, it's not even the topic I want to confront because I would say there's a lot of sad elements now. That's how most days start. Then there's the career questions once I look away from family and I think it's a fair question to pitch to Christians. that think that God wrote the Bible for them, ask them, how come God made the whole race start out with two inbreeders in a garden? Why is being created in the image of God? So however many generations it took of inbreeding in some garden, why is ancestral reproductive sex being born in the image of a god? This is maybe a story from ancient conquerors who didn't really have much sense of logic. How come Chinese people and all these other ethnicities exist, yet the race started out with two inbreeders from a particular ethnicity inbreeding in a garden? That is an amusing quality in Christian art, Christian music and Christian rock, where they suggest that the best kept secret that you should find spiritually is this story of being created through incest in a garden. I'm playing some now. I think the incest story, everyone finds that so disgusting that they actually don't take so much offense to this story of Jesus being crucified for their sake. I mean, if you think being created through incest, Joanna is the most beautiful one in the Australian Capital Territory.
Not quite.
Extending to New South Wales.
Within a radius. But only when you're drunk.
I'm not drunk enough to say that she is not my most beautiful
for drunk.
More than a year. She's too beautiful for you cunts on Instagram. I guess anyone in business should know not to rip a person's life's work. That'll piss someone off. Try and rip someone's life's work. Now the Freemasons want to rip your life's work. They're coming. For the way Roger talks, he should be willing to fight. Really. I've watched myself get bashed, my skull fractured, getting punched in the face. Does Roger know what that feels like? Got a cunt mouth from a distance. A real cunt mouth. Should be, if he talks like that, it should be someone who would fight. I want to see if he can really fight. Your challenge, Mason. Come on. I do despise the mind of the sociological researcher who thinks that they can observe anything and excuse it in the name of research in good faith. It's unconstitutional without the freely given consent of the citizen. So what takes a Freemason with beliefs to think they're above the Australian Constitution? Well, no, they're just dickheads. Watch someone else I said, watch someone else. Watch someone who wants you to watch them by their written free consent, freely given, or you're unconstitutional. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. Those are the facts. So what are they researching now? Is that a fuck off or a thumbs up? Better profile it. Get a new carpet anyway, so I don't know if I should make videos of shitting and pissing on this carpet, but spitting on it is good. I enjoy it. That is the final thing that you could wonder is if Roger would say by this point, oh, did you name me as a fag pred? Because if you did, congratulations, that was the test. You passed the test. No, I'm not a fag pred, but I'm a man who executes very thoroughly interesting and respectable tests. And that would be the only thing he would say, or else he would say, yep, I'm a fag pred. Fuck. What's the best speed that I should penetrate Rolf Harris's colon and sphincter with my inbred Tassie shaft? And I would say, well, if only you ran a chemist that claimed that everyone else needs you, maybe the people of Australia would help you come to an answer to that question. But as for now, I can't, so I'm sorry. You have to leave that for now and think about it. I'm definitely at liberty to think that Roger Todd must consider himself intellectually bound by the inherent incoherency within the logistics of the affirmed teachings of the Masonic Church, so that when it leads him to make mistakes and commit errors in what he calls his right, which actually, in fact, to be constitutional, has to involve, something like a written agreement or a clearly petitioned request for what he's elsewhere calling his right, and what his teaching in the workplace entails him to issue warnings prior to affecting what he did call his right, which he'd describe as a nerve-by-nerve process. I can only suppose that it would be when a given citizen knows that they know that he knows that he's violated significantly the Privacy Act, just to begin, and only to find the more he does, and then there's no identified presence of psychological conflict, so that intellectually it comes back to him that his exercising of that which at work he calls it. He would just sum up and refer to it as his right. And he's left knowing that his loathing would have been better spent on his own church, because he doesn't know why it's what they taught him is right. All they can say is it just is, it just is, it just is, it just is. So then he'll continue, those Privacy Act violations. It's he very much reminds me of Bar Brady, except, well, it would be someone who impersonates Bar Brady. I'll move along, people. Nothing to see here. So I do not particularly enjoy thinking about it, but if an antagonist and an offender, an antagonist is putting them out of your mind is what's enjoyable, but I think for anyone it would be impossible not to have to stop and think about the antagonist from time to time. I have been occasionally downloading and reviewing the careers of certain Christian artists who I used to listen to when I was going to church. And I obviously contrast the logistics of their lyrics now. After the debates that I have won and the conclusions I've drawn about the New Testament's credibility, it's something I do not think that these Christian artists take very seriously. But I think some of them are stepping back and also realizing that commercial organized religion is very stupid in various ways. So one impressive element about these bands when I was a teen was the vocalist talents and the instrumentation that was good. But laden with all these messages of, go, you're in this movement, for Christ, and I don't understand. Yeah, I get offended once the talk is about Christ dying for you. Bishop Spong is even against that message and trying to make it a source of empowerment leads to error and judgment, I think. So you have to be cautious with this sort of bands. Yeah, I think with skillless lyrics, I admire the questioning element to the lyrics, but this literacy, New Testament, doesn't seem to have been questioned. When I hear the rooster crow, I'm ashamed. It soon turns. It starts with being accosted and they say, Jesus Christ died for you. Accept it. And then you get into this mentality of, well, then did I kill him? If he died for me, what does that mean? And you know, Mel Gibson is a good example of this bug nutty. It's very similar to Roger Toll. He'd like to make you a Christian in an epistemological sense, so he can put you in a nutty psych ward for a while and go, yeah, the Freemasons. Anyway, they're onto something, because he sings about hate. Maybe if you hate that doctrine of him dying for you, and hate that execution, I don't get why these bands don't get that, but anyway. It's similar to feeling to then being on a forum. So, you know, I simply cannot agree with the summarized message or its contingencies. But there's an element to their effort that I think is commendable, but I can't say that and then have people say, oh, I support their message, because they don't. They need Jesus in as like a, you know, a blob doll. He's whatever they want him to be. The message of concerning enemies and how to, you know, this Christian idea of stretching out in love to die for your enemies. It's like I think making a person like bait. Wait until you find a very clever enemy. I think the way that enemies need to be dealt with is that they're made to make amends in direct proportion to the wrongs that they know they've inflicted. But that has to be calculated. And extremely premeditated and calculated enemy. If a Christian encounters them, they'll wind up, you know, becoming the bitch or something, because I think they gotta love their enemy. Enemies could retweak a Christian's worldview. The Christians just loving them because they're instructed to. They think Jesus told them to in the plagiarized gospel. Yeah, you have to successfully find a way to mess with the minds, I think, of enemies that have wronged you. I think Tori Amos' genre should be called anti-rape music. Beautiful woman. The story my neighbor told me about the flight from the singer from Tool to go and help Tori. But that's true. Fuck. Her Nirvana cover is fucking amazing. She's an amazing woman. Joe's not letting me tether tonight. We're playing a Mario.
Because of you, we died.
Because of me, because of me, we died on World 2, Level 2.
That is suicide, and you know it.
I can't believe it's yesterday. I'm playing Skrillex to Joe. She won't let me tell. Here is my phallus-shaped controller. Alright. Joe was in a bubble, but we got her out. I'm over here. There's Joe. Go, Joe.
Jump! Oh, wait, get off his phone.
How beautiful is Joe?
Bye.
She's just so beautiful. This is a perfect loop of an 80s beat. Free and easy. It's on motherfucking loop. Now take it off the loop. It's 80s music and Mario, as you can see. We're up to world 2, 3. World 2, level 3. Do a sticky middle finger at the camera.
Stop.
Okay.
I'm dreaming of something I could never be. It doesn't bother me, cause I will always be that pimp that I see in all of my fantasies. I don't know your fucking name, so one let's screaming at me. The only way that I can truly be free. So I dream and it's hard cause it's so fancy. My face staring back at me. I don't know your fucking name, so let's fuck.
My flyers are.
All day I dream about fucking. All day I dream about sex and all day. I dream about sex and all day. I dream about sex and all day. I dream about sex and always. I dream about sex all day. I dream about sex.
I'd rather live in Canberra than any of the other capital cities in Australia.
Well, that's what we do. I can't take this all our life. All our lives are dangerous, but we keep through. That's that's what we do. Now, what are you? Grew up with Korn and Manson. Two best artists. Two best vocalists. We are the ones taking out all the pain. Falling on our faces, they don't care anyway. You're the one that makes me feel like I'm alive. You're the one that pushes me all the time, all the time. We are hard to play. Always praised to do what they say. Calling me into rage. Feeling now what I must take his place away. 18th March and never gonna run away, sticking out my path, but the pain always gets in the way. Oh, slowly watch me die on the thing so dangerous, don't you dare get in my way. Rolling in the town on the streets on the train, get the fuck out of my way. Looking up, take my time, I feel the spikes in my veins. Reaching out in vain, trying to solve our problems, they won't go away now, go away now. You're the one that makes me feel like I'm alive. You're the one that pushes me all the time now. We are hard to play. Always praised to do what they say, calling me to rage. Feeling now. Australia, God, bound, but don't wet on that. Never gonna run away, sticking on the path, but the pain always gets in the way. Slowly watch me die on the thing so dangerous, don't you dare get in my way. Going in the town, going straight so the train. Looking in the night, take my time. I'm pounding all these spikes in my veins. Don't you dare get in my way. Going in the dark, I'm straight so betrayed. Get the fuck out of my way. Looking at my gun to take my time. Now I know the spikes in my power. Now I know the spikes in my power. Now I know the spikes in my veins. Now I know the spikes in my power. Now I know the spikes in my veins. Now I know the spikes in my power. Yeah, I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to let One House of High School down. So this song is
song about love from Korn in 1998. Mass hysteria. I think the pluses to Cartesian logic was beginning to point to the importance of independent thinking, but the cogito of René Descartes is a bit limited because you wouldn't say that you are anything that you've thought about, but I think therefore I am. Pointing to us being thinking beings is obviously a virtue, but because Descartes was a bit more impressive than religious dogmatists, his ideas are still credited as if they were a great breakthrough. But I suppose, yeah, that what I have genuinely learned is if there are religious health officials, their whole concept of conscience and moral awareness stands to be pretty much them trying to insist that they aren't guilty of religious discrimination. I find the name of Calvary Hospital to be offensive because I don't share in the view of being thankful for the crucifixion. I think confusing suicide and self-sacrifice is a hideous error amongst the religious.
I think one hallmark of the religious right imposing trying to scapegoat art is evidenced in disclaimer material. Like they'll put a disclaimer on a music video, but they won't put a disclaimer on the garden of incest in the Bible, or talk about why the crucifixion could only be regarded an error by anyone who comprehends any form of naturalistic reasoning whatsoever. Art is not even claiming to be morally instructive, and yet it will cop disclaimers, while the Bible will be called the perfect and infallible word of a God, and promotes incest, war, sexual slavery, infanticide, human sacrifice. So it genuinely makes no sense. I think the central fallacy innate to the Christology, they might call it, the Christ based, upon which they elaborate on in the theological writings that comprise most of the New Testament documents, documents placed in the New Testament following the Gospels. They're from a time where I think a lot of panic struck the population about why capital punishment happened and why it had to have some sort of meaning. So things like Jesus' death being a sacrificial gift are ideas that I just couldn't accept, and I was mistaken to have had some sort of she would call it a vision. I was quite sad. She never noticed that I was sad, and so I stayed sad while noticing that she didn't notice that I was sad when I was sad about a very significant matter. And I mean, I still listen to, sometimes there are certain Christian music artists that I still listen to, Jars of Clay, and there'd probably be more. Project 86 I quite like, but I don't mean in saying that I in any sense promote the Christian right or the Christian movement or even Christianity. That's the thing. You can listen to songs like Liquid by Jars of Clay. He wasn't broken for nothing. This is the one thing that I know. And so in my mind, it's like, yeah, his death is a tremendous offense. I'm offended by it. So no, it wasn't for nothing. It was to offend people like me. So yeah, the lyrics to the song, I can sing along to it. Because Jesus in some sense was imposed on me to comprehend him in some way, as both in family and in the circles that the church I was a part of in my teens. So I don't claim to have a relationship. Finished. Yeah, so it's I don't celebrate or give thanks. I don't believe in the resurrection, obviously, and analyzing the Gospel of Mark proves that it wasn't even mentioned by the author of the Gospel of Mark. And why didn't he mention it? Since it's such an amazing prospect.
he'd be an idiot to mention the things that he did mention and not mention the resurrection. So, you know, you can think of the human that he tried to be. That's why I love Marilyn Manson's statement when they tried to indict him with being so against Jesus, and he said, you know, I couldn't possibly be against Jesus because your religion killed him and what he stood for. And so I think that there's more truth in that than what churches will say. So, you know, there are times when I find I don't think I have any sort of, I don't have a relationship with Jesus because he's been dead for over 2,000 years. I'm not a theist, as I've said. But yeah, I can. So then that might throw you, and you would think, well, why could you sing along to these songs by these artists like Jars of Clay? And I'm careful in dabbling in Christian music. But I do claim to have respect for the idea that he should have been able to live his life and lead it the way he wanted, given that the things I think that he was saying, as best as we can tell what it was he was saying, didn't warrant him being killed. So, and I can relate to expression and being true to yourself and standing up for those that you've decided you will stand up for, getting you indicted and resulting in other people being atrocious and aggressive towards you. So I can relate to that. I've experienced that, but you can sing songs like Hymn by Jars of Clay, think of, you know, he should have been allowed to keep living. You can sing along to songs like Liquid by Jars of Clay and get angry about the crucifixion. So it's not the way my family or Christians think of Jesus, but that's the way it is in my mind. So I think, yeah, you know, if, at the moment I'm on a pension while I recover and contemplate my next career move, and I think, you know, if there was a book written saying Luke lived at Lynham, and one day Luke awoke and went to IGA and bought a packet of cigarettes and 2-litre milk and a packet of Lipton tea bags. Luke made the tea with the milk and the tea bags and smoked the cigarettes, and that was in the book. And then and Luke said one day, maybe I will quit these cigarettes, and that was then in a book. And then 10 years later they get that and they change it, so it says Luke went to the shops to buy tea bags, milk, and cigarettes. There he found a man begging for money out the front of the store. So he put his hand on the head of the man begging out the front of the store, and suddenly the man had $6.7 billion magically appear in his savings account. Then on the way home, a car on the nearby road hit a pedestrian, but Luke walked up to the body flew off from an impact numerous meters and was pronounced dead by a coroner. But then Luke walked up and he placed his hands on the dead body while holding his bag of Lipton tea bags and cigarettes and milk, and the man arose with steel limbs until the medical scientist left, and then his steel limbs turned back into a new flesh body, and the man was healed and raised from the dead. And then Luke made a cup of tea with Lipton tea bags, and then after that, another 15 years later, there's another book that says, in the beginning, the tea bags and the milk and the cigarettes were one with the Lord, and so the Lord sent Luke to an apartment in Lynham, and where he would perform many miracles. Anyway, and so that sort of thing happens. So would it be my fault, really? Should I get lined up and killed on the charge that I had claimed to have healed all these people? It's not fair. It's not in the original writing. Got nothing to do with me. I was thinking about, I guess, what in his mind. Oh, but I knew you as a young boy in recovery. That's how what he thought. You know, there are reasons to support or be supportive. I mean, my mother, a work colleague, long term, and close friend of Hilda Hepburn, the mother of Gavin Hepburn. So, you know, I can remember visiting. Gavin was into the movie White Man Can't Jump and had a basketball hoop, and his brother Rowan with long hair, and I did like Gavin. I thought he was cool in those years. He showed me some things about basic computer operations and got me a copy of printouts of translating English words into the Klingon language. The Klingon language is a language developed out of an interest from Star Trek fans in the Klingon species and how they talk. And I wanted to learn Klingon, and I remember being thankful to Gavin back then because, you know, he printed out all these he printed out lots of pages for me of Klingon language. Now I wondered, having encountered him as an adult, once again, as I got my pharmacy job, one point he was like, "Oh, you'd be very good at it," and when he helped teach me DJ, and I'm not unthankful for his help there. And he said, "You'd be a born DJ," because I seem to think I took quickly to the technical aspects of mixing. And I won't forget those years that we were doing the Platform 3 stint and collaborating with him. A photo of the two of us from back then. And what's the question? You have a falling out with someone doesn't mean you say that, you know, every moment between the two of you in the past is therefore bullshit. I don't agree with that, but thinking he could make some psychological arced case to monopolize in on the weaker aspects, or me at my most weak, and this was too offensive. So that